parking money, they need to simply pay a minus 0.4% of a so-called parking fee. Let's say it that way, a parking fee. And they won't change anything, and all they said is that they won't be buying more bonds, and that they will enter the bond purchases until the rest of the year. So that's a fact. All they possibly are talking about is a new LTRO, so long-term refinancing operations are not off the table. So that possibly is a case. I'm pretty interested how they will do that in the next month to come. Possibly they will, let's say, they will create some special tenders for Italy and for Italian banks, for example. So that possibly is one of those more than 3 or 4 ideas browsing around, possibly creatable. Okay, let's have a look at the euros dollar rate, where it might head to. Horizontal lines in direction, so that 61.8 level is the first one to crack to the upside, of course. The next, let's say, target might be this 113.80s, and of course the old high 114.72. I'm speaking about the target of 114.98. Not only the reason because I think it might be something like an overshoot here in the next weeks, but in case of retesting. Yeah, let's just say a position might be stopped out directly at my stop loss. Sometimes happens. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at a couple of other markets. Let's just check the market watch here. And going back to, for example, last week, where we spoke about the bond future. So if you check out the bond future here, we spoke about a possible trade box scenario where we might short the bond future. So far, so good. If you already took that one out, might be more into points. Now getting back up to this trading box here again. I won't speak about a new short zone right now here. So that's the reason I'm deleting that one and looking to. So be aware that you should directly at my stop loss. Sometimes happens. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at a couple of other markets. Let's just check the market watch here. And going back to, for example, last week, where we spoke about the bond future. So if you check out the bond future here, we spoke about a possible trade box scenario where we might short the bond future. So far, so good. If you already took that one out, might be more into points. Now getting back up to this trading box here again. I won't speak about a new short zone right now here. So that's the reason I'm deleting that one and looking to a more detailed version. Look at the last highs. So we will be seeing that there is another possibility of a short setup, which would run into this that 61.8 level, very close to that 164 level. So it might be interesting to just be patient that the Eurobond future is testing this scenario, and that you might place a pending order around that 164 level, let's say at 163.98 short, with a 20 or 30 pip, a point stop loss. So that's one of those scenarios. Another one is, I spoke about that. Where is it? The US dollar Canadian. So that loonie trade is still hovering around 133.90s, and not sure if let's say this loonie is going more up the road. Of course, we probably have some targets regarding those Fibonacci projections to the upside here in direction 136, of course. But if you have a look at the current oil data, the current oil prices, I'm not only talking about WTI, and on top talking about Brent. So if you talk about those two world most important oil contracts, if we have something like a little bit of relief rally to the upside until the end of the year, that might lead to a more heavy Canadian dollar, so a more powerful Canadian dollar, and that would lead the pair more to the downside. So this could be something like a target, just marking that with a horizontal line here as well, of that 61.8 level here, which is around the 131.50s. So is it possible? That's a possible trade scenario for the loonie. Just try to get a better entry zone. You might be shorting the next overshoot. That would be something like a situation to favor. And that would be something like a perfect entry in direction to the downside. So favorable position would be a loonie short. Talking about oil, we will be checking that out as well. And this old chart set up here. The only thing I will delete is this trading box here. The old chart setup here is still valid. And if you check out this 161.8 level down here at 59.80s, which is still in test. So we are still in progress to getting back up to this 138.2 Fibonacci retracement here, projection, excuse me, and the 100 Fibonacci retracement at 70s. So the target of a couple of weeks is still that 70 marker. Would be very interesting to see what kind of implications all these talks about Saudi Arabia, who are willing to massively reduce oil exports in direction to US. What does it mean for the major two oil contracts and for the oil market, the world oil market? So possibly negative for let's say a couple of guys thinking about that they reduce the price leverage, the price level, but thinking about traders like us, we're favoring the bull scenario. That might be positive, leading the prices back up the road. So that would be favorable to see a next, let's say, dip to buy. So if we just get that test back of that 168 level here in the next days, it might be interesting to speculate on the relief back up again. All right. First of all, what is it about? Yeah, Euro NOK. A couple of times I spoke about that. The 61.8 level is the major indicator, or let's say the major trigger line. Once again, it could possibly get back up to this level again, and this might be a next short setup, a next short possibility for that kind of currency pair. It's not on every day's menu, let's say. Euro NOK is something special, but it's interesting regarding the fact that when you short it, you simply get positive swaps night overnight, and that's maybe interesting. Okay, let's see what the rest of the market does. Of course, very dangerous currency pair the last days. A couple of invitations from the market around the 90s, 60s level. So there was a huge spike up in this Euro GBP pair, just around those votes against Theresa May. But in the end, she survived. She survived that vote of confidence. And let's see what the European Union, what Brussels is about to negotiate in case of that Irish backstop rule in the next days or weeks to come. That might secure Theresa May's position as a prime minister. If not, possibly they might kick her out of business, and that would lead to even more suffering pound in the long run. So possibly a currency pair only to be touched when we have something like tremendous spikes in direction 1 or 1.5% on a daily basis. So that might be an invitation of the market to short that one. The same stuff, of course, with the cable. So GBP versus the US dollar. If that happens to be the fact that we will have a 1 or 1.5% daily reaction, this might be a nice counter trend trade. Okay, so Tim, a couple of questions possibly, or did I miss something, or possibly some special market clients are wishing for?
No, Dirk. At the moment, we have no special question here for the moment. Yeah, you show us some interesting markets for the moment. So I don't know. Maybe you would like to show Euro USD dollar. You have already, or?
We had that one already, and okay. one thing on top maybe. Because I'm into that gold stuff on guidance here as well. Maybe we will have a look at even on top of the still wallet chart setup from the older charts here, because this gold market is still trying to get back up in direction of those projections. The old targets, just squeeze that chart here. The old targets to the upside are still at the 1270s. This is the 161.8 marker here. And this is nothing like, let's say there's nothing like too much water is running down the river. It's still possible that we will get back up with this market here in direction with the first step at 1250s, and then the next days and weeks to come in direction to the 1270s. So this all depends on the story developing with the US. And if you check out this fiscal data, the latest November fiscal data, it's really horror. It's one of the worst November data in the last years or decades. The US has a deficit around 200 billion. Let's just check, because I don't want to tell you guys a wrong number. US state spent $411 billions in November, and the state income, so the tax income and stuff like that, was just 206 billion. So the deficit is way up of 200 billion in November. Crazy data, and we will see how this kind of a story is developing with negotiations between China and the US, and between this diplomatic stuff like this Huawei case, which is leading to more diplomatic problems between China and US. And possibly on top of that, a so-called showdown with that possible shutdown talk. So it's not off the table. Just imagine if there are to create, or Donald Trump's about to create or to provoke another shutdown in the US history. So that would lead to a weaker US dollar, and that would definitely normally lead to higher gold prices. And you all know, normally in the case of a correlation talk, the weaker the US dollar is, the more commodities are going back up the road, and so should gold do. Okay. Yeah, I guess time's our limit, as Jens always tells us. we will hopefully have a perfect weekend, and that's the one thing I wanted to wish you guys. Have a relaxing weekend. Christmas markets are open. Hopefully you will have the one or two nice drinks and relax and have a perfect weekend. Thank you so far. And last webinar of this year will be taking place at 21st of December next week, Friday, 11 CT. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, Dirk, thank you very much as well, and all our listeners today. So yeah, as Dirk already said, have a
Good morning or good day, wherever you are. This is our global welcome to Atmel Markets. We will start like every day with our disclaimer.
Days, you know, success is not a fantasy, it's a formula. And you know, this is my trading approach. Trend, outcoming of the correction with Fibonacci, with market profile, and Fibonacci market profile. Put it in the chat box. I can see now it's your webinar. You are the more important people here in this webinar. So NASDAQ 100, first of all, a daily chart. What you can see first, you have a downtrend. Movement correction, we corrected down to 7,133 points, and now we are a little bit in the next move down to the last low 6440, but you can see we are in the red zone. This is an indicator. You cannot find it in internet. You can buy it on the homepage. Look at the chat box. There you find the link to that. It's a really important indicator because it shows you what will tell you the price, what the price will tell to you, what will the price to say to you, if I am unfair valued or if I am fair valued, which your normal price and your normal